Right now, your brain is doing something no other species on Earth can do. It's taking invisible vibrations in the air, decoding them into symbols, attaching meanings, emotions, even memories, all in milliseconds. We call it language. But here's the wild part. Nobody alive today actually knows how it started. There's no recording of the first word ever spoken, no fossil of the first sentence. And yet, somehow, every human civilization that has ever existed built itself on this single, invisible technology. So how did we go from grunting cavemen to writing poetry, coding software, and arguing on the internet? Buckle up, because the history of human language is stranger than you think. Let's rewind about 2 million years. Our ancestors, early Homo species, weren't exactly chatting. They lived in small groups, hunted, scavenged, and communicated mostly the way chimpanzees do today, with gestures, facial expressions, and a handful of vocal calls. But something was already changing in their bodies. Their brains were getting bigger. Their throats were reshaping. The larynx, the voice box, was slowly dropping lower in the neck. That single anatomical shift would eventually give humans something no primate had, the ability to produce a massive range of distinct sounds. The hardware for language was being built, long before there was any software to run on it. Fast forward to around 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens appears, and with us came something revolutionary, a tiny gene called FOXP2. Scientists discovered that this gene is critical for fine motor control of the mouth, jaw, and vocal cords. People born with a mutated version of FOXP2 today struggle to form complex speech. Our version of FOXP2 is slightly different from a chimpanzee's, and that small difference may have unlocked the ability to speak in long, complex sequences. Combine that with our oversized social brains, and suddenly you have a species that doesn't just make noise. It tells stories, gives instructions, and warns about dangers that aren't even present yet. Here's where things get truly mysterious. Linguists believe that somewhere between 100,000 and 50,000 years ago, fully grammatical language emerged. Not just words, but rules. Subjects, verbs, objects, tenses. The kind of structure that lets you say, "Yesterday, I almost got eaten by a lion near the river," instead of just shouting "lion." This is called the cognitive revolution, and it changed everything. Humans could now coordinate massive hunts, pass down survival knowledge across generations, and form abstract concepts like gods, spirits, and tribes. Language wasn't just communication anymore. It was the operating system of an entirely new kind of mind. But here's a question nobody can answer for certain. Was there ever a single original language? A first mother tongue spoken by the first speaking humans? Some linguists believe yes. They call it proto-human or proto-sapiens. Others say language probably evolved in multiple places at once, like fire being discovered by different tribes independently. The problem is, spoken language leaves no fossils. Sound vanishes the moment it's made. So we can only trace languages back as far as the oldest written records and reconstructed parent languages. Beyond that, it's all educated guessing. Somewhere in the deep past, there may have been a word that meant water, spoken by a single person that started everything. We'll never know what it sounded like. What we can do is reconstruct ancient parent languages by comparing modern ones. The most famous example is proto-indo-european, or PIE. Around 6,000 years ago, somewhere in the steppes north of the Black Sea, a group of horse-riding nomads spoke a language we'll never directly hear. But their descendants carried it across Europe, Iran, and India. Today, more than 3 billion people speak a language descended from PIE. English, Spanish, Russian, Hindi, Persian, Greek, and hundreds more. Linguists have reconstructed thousands of PI words by working backward. The word for father was something like patter, for star, stir, one language, one people, half the planet's tongues. Of course, not every language came from PII. There are massive families we haven't even mentioned. The Sino-Tibetan family, which gave us Mandarin. The Afro-Asiatic family, home to Arabic and Hebrew. The Bantu languages of Africa. The Austronesian family, which spread across the Pacific Ocean on outrigger canoes. And then there are the lonely ones, language isolates like Basque in Spain or Korean, which appear unrelated to anything else. These isolates are linguistic ghosts. They suggest that the ancient world was once full of language families that have completely vanished, leaving only a few survivors. Imagine entire civilizations whose words have been erased without a trace. Now here comes the next great leap. Around 5,000 years ago in ancient Sumer, modern-day Iraq, something extraordinary happened. Humans figured out how to make language visible. They pressed wedge-shaped marks into wet clay tablets, inventing a system called cuneiform. At first, it was just accounting, how many sheep, how much grain, boring stuff. But within a few centuries, those same marks were recording laws, poetry, and the world's oldest known story, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Around the same time, Egyptians developed hieroglyphics. The Chinese began carving characters into bones. Writing didn't just store words, it froze them in time so a person dead for thousands of years could still speak to you today. But early writing systems were brutal to learn. Cuneiform had hundreds of signs. Hieroglyphics had even more. Reading and writing were elite skills reserved for priests and scribes. Then around 1800 BC, in the deserts of the Sinai Peninsula, workers borrowed Egyptian symbols and simplified them into something revolutionary: the first alphabet. Just a handful of signs, each representing a sound. Suddenly, you didn't need years of training. You could learn to write in weeks. The Phoenicians refined it and spread it across the Mediterranean. The Greeks added vowels. The Romans tweaked it again. That alphabet, born in a dusty desert mining camp, is the one you're reading right now on every sign, screen, and book around you. For thousands of years after that, language was something you spoke or wrote by hand. Books were rare. Literacy was for the wealthy. Then, in the 1440s, a German guy named Johannes Gutenberg changed civilization forever. His printing press could produce books in days instead of years. Within 50 years, millions of books were circulating across Europe. Ideas spread faster than ever before. The Bible was translated into local languages. Scientific knowledge exploded. The Protestant Reformation happened. The Renaissance accelerated. Empires rose and fell partly because of who controlled the printing press. Language went from a slow-moving river to a flood, and the world that came out the other side was completely unrecognizable. As empires expanded, languages traveled with them, sometimes peacefully, often by force. Spanish conquistadors carried their tongue across the Americas. The British Empire planted English on every continent. French became the language of diplomacy. Arabic spread with Islamic trade routes. But every act of expansion also meant erasure. Indigenous languages were banned in schools. Children were punished for speaking their mother tongues. Entire linguistic ecosystems collapsed within a few generations. Today, of the roughly 7,000 languages still spoken on Earth, nearly half are endangered. Linguists estimate that one language dies every 2 weeks. Each one takes with it a unique way of seeing the world. Words and concepts that have no translation. Meanwhile, in the modern world, English has done something no language in history has ever done before. It's become the first truly global lingua franca. Roughly 1.5 billion people speak it, but only a quarter of them as a native language. English is the language of aviation, science, the internet, business, and pop culture. If a Japanese scientist and a Brazilian engineer want to collaborate, they'll probably use English. Mandarin has more native speakers, but English has more reach. Some linguists think this could lead to thousands of smaller languages collapsing into a few dominant ones over the next century. Others believe technology might actually save dying languages instead. Which brings us to the next twist. The internet didn't just spread English, it created entirely new forms of language. Texting birthed abbreviations and acronyms that real-world dictionaries now include. Emojis became a global pictographic system that any culture can roughly understand. Memes evolved into a shared visual vocabulary that spreads faster than any spoken word. Languages once considered too small for international use now thrive in YouTube comments and social media. Communities of speakers, separated by oceans, can keep their dialects alive online. artificial intelligence is now translating between languages in real time, including languages that almost died out. For the first time in history, the tools of language are in the hands of regular people, not just empires and elites. Now here's a thought that messes with people. Language doesn't just describe how we think, it might actually shape how we think. This idea is called linguistic relativity. Speakers of languages with different color words actually perceive colors differently in experiments. Some Aboriginal Australian languages don't use left or right. They use north, south, east, and west, even for body parts. As a result, their speakers always know which direction they're facing, even in unfamiliar places. Russian speakers, who have two separate words for light blue and dark blue, distinguish those shades faster than English speakers. The language sitting in your brain right now isn't just a tool, it's a lens, and every language gives you a slightly different view of reality. So where is all this heading? Some linguists predict that by the year 2100, up to 90% of today's languages could vanish. Others believe AI translation will become so seamless that we'll stop bothering to learn foreign languages at all. Imagine wearing earbuds that translate any conversation instantly, in any tongue. We're already halfway there. But there's also a counter-trend. Indigenous communities are using apps, podcasts, and social media to revive languages that were nearly extinct just a generation ago. The Welsh language is growing again. Hawaiian is being taught in schools. Languages are dying, but languages are also being reborn. The story isn't over. It's still being written and rewritten in real time. So here's the takeaway. Every language you've ever heard, every sentence, every word, every joke, is part of a chain stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Somewhere in deep prehistory, a human looked at another human and made a sound that meant something. That tiny spark became the fire that built every city, every story, every science, every culture on this planet. You are not just using language, you are language. It rewires your brain, shapes your reality, and connects you to every human who has ever lived. So the next time you say a word, any word, remember, you're holding the most powerful invention in human history on the tip of your tongue. If you found this fascinating, stick around. Geography Exposed has plenty more hidden histories waiting for you.